Welcome back to Watching Business Incorporated right here on Channels Television. We head to the markets now with Will Ibong. Will?
Hey, good afternoon, Ini.
Good afternoon, Will.
All I can say is that the markets, especially the NGX, did not kick off the second half of 2024 on a positive note.
I'm just glad that we're on 100,000.
Well, it's not just the fact that we're on 100,000. We probably are barely hanging on to the 100,000.
We'll be better by the close of trade.
Okay, I'll keep, hold on to that optimism. It's quite infectious, so I'm just going to take it contagious.
Okay.
So I'm just going to keep that spirit up and keep that momentum for the close of business. Let's kick off with major equities in Africa, where we see sentiments at intraday were mostly negative. Nigeria's NGX was in the red, flat 0.01%, still hanging on to 100,000 there. But we'll see, just like Ini mentioned, if it's going to hold on to that level. Now, South Africa's JSE was also trading down at intraday, 0.37%. And Egypt's EGX 30 traded up. That's the lone gainer in that area, in Africa, 0.18%. And Kenya's stock market also closed Monday's trading session in the green. Now, let's look at what's happening at the NGX now. Let's bring in Mr. Kofi Garba. He's the CEO, APT Securities Limited. Good afternoon, Mr. Garba. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Garba, please talk to us. We're in the second half of 2024. What's driving intraday activity? What's driving the stocks at the market right now at intraday?
Well, as at now, the market looked at just flat, but hopefully the market will rise because what the market did for the first half year is surprising. Almost double our turnover compared to 2023. We closed with about 1.3 trillion turnover for the half year ended 28 June, compared to less than 800 billion for the 2023. Don't forget that in the first quarter, there is more foreign inflow, about $3.3 billion comes in through foreign direct investment compared to 1.1 in 2023. So there is all hope that more are likely going to be seen in 2024, especially in the second half, in view of the fact that most of the banking capitalization, we have just seen one, and more are likely coming in this second half year. And that will trigger the activities of the market, both in the secondary and the primary market. So we have the hope and the confidence that by the time half year result be released, you will see the trend in the market will go into positive. Remember, July is most of the time close in the positive year. And this year, we are not expecting to see something different.
Okay, you're talking about the historical trend here. July is always in the positive. But we see the first trading day of July, that was yesterday, kicking off on a negative note. Sentiment report, if we look at that, it showed that there was 40% buy and 60% sell at the NGX. Should we expect this trend to continue, or do you see that turnaround and we see that, historical trend playing out for the rest of July?
No, those are just correction for the half year ended. But I can tell you, way forward, we are expecting to see more activities because there is expectation. And most of the companies have declared their Q1 with a positive result. We are expecting this trend to continue in the Q2. And don't forget that there is likely going to come to the end of the issue of minimum wage. And this will translate more inflow to the general workers. And if there is more inflow, some part of it will find their way into the investment line. So I'm expecting to see more positive response in the second half year.
Okay, I would like to really share your optimism, but we did see that PMI report from Stanbic IBTC, which shows that, the PMI Purchasing Managers Index dropped to 50. That's hanging on that level, that anything lower than that shows that there's a contraction. Do you see companies who are struggling right now making that turnover that you're talking about and seeing, presenting good results for the second half?
Yes, we are expecting this to happen. There is no way you will review the salary of the workers and you will not see more increase reflected in the turnover across the commodity market and what have you. So we are expecting this will be across the board because there is more increase in the purchasing power and definitely sure will reflect in the performance and the activities of most of the company. Yes, we have seen the PMC, the purchasing power index going down, but this is not likely going to continue. We are anticipating that it may go off in view of the fact that the issue of this minimum wage will come to conclusion within this month. And we are hoping that the state will also abide by the minimum wage and across the private institutions, and this will translate more inflow to the workers who are generally played to the market.
Okay, speaking of companies now, what sectors should investors be focusing on in the second half? We do know that we want to know where to play at. So these monies that we are getting, especially talking about the minimum wage, people would know how to invest it to be able to make real returns, increase their income and, double it rather than have inflation, erode it.
Well, the sector that is the agriculture, no doubt over it, as well as the food and beverages, because these are the sector that you must eat. And when there is more inflow, people will increase their consumption. So we're expecting companies like Cadbury, like Nestle, like Flour Mill, most of them were expecting to see positive increase. We are also equally expecting the same to appear to most of those companies that are into beverage, like Nigerian breweries, Guinness. We are expecting to see increase in their turnover. The other sector that we are expecting to see more is that of the oil sector. There is no doubt we have seen most of their results, and they are likely going to do. Power is not exception. Power have already get the increase in both the tariff and the stable supply. So we are expecting to see more increase in the turnover in the power sector, even though their prices for some time have been stagnated, but it's a matter of time. When they declare their half-year result and give the confidence and the promise, you will see more rally into those sectors. So these are some of the few sectors we are expecting to see more.
Okay, thank you so much, Alhaji. But before I let you go very quickly, I just wanted to tell us, let's come very closer now, because we've been talking about the expectations for the half year. How do you see the markets closing today? What stocks would investors be trading or fading, and how would the markets close?
If you look at it, recently you will see that some of the major banks, like the Fidelity Bank, Zenith Bank, UBA, Access, they are all in the positive gear. And if they sustain this one, the index will close positively. Because today, the major player are the banking sectors. And definitely sure they are the one that raise up the index, because the top five are not likely going to change, except probably the MTN. But I don't see much for the Dangote cement, for the Boa cement, Boa food. And therefore, so we rely more into the banking sector. And a good number of them, they are trading positively. And we are expecting to sustain this. And if this continue, we are likely going to close the index trade marginally positive.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kofi Garba, CEO, APT Securities, for sharing your insights on Business Incorporated. It's always good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Let's move on to other regions now. We'll stop at the Gulf, where major stock markets were mostly positive at intraday. We see Abu Dhabi up 0.26%. We see Dubai also up about 0.5% there. Now, still within the region, Saudi Arabia was down 0.05%, and Qatar was up almost down because it hit the 10,000 points. The exchange, crossed that 10,000 level on stronger global energy prices, and we see that drop. But it's just, temporarily dropped there. We expect that turnaround for the close of trade today. Now let's look at the U.S. markets very quickly. In early trade today, stock futures fell on Tuesday after major averages closed higher to start the second half of 2024. We saw those bullish stocks as tech stocks outperformed. Now the Dow Jones futures, we see it down 0.31%. S&P 500 futures is also down. Same with the Nasdaq futures. We see that dip for the three averages. Now Wall Street is coming off a positive session for the benchmarks, that we know. But investors are deliberating whether the strong start to the year can continue in the back half of 2024. However, some analysts believe that the performance of underlying stocks in the major indexes remain at a healthy level for now. Meanwhile, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell is scheduled to speak on Tuesday, that's today, in a couple of hours before a policy panel at the European Central Bank Forum. Now, May jobs openings and labor turnover report is also due out today. Markets will also end early tomorrow and close on Thursday for the 4th of July holiday. And on Friday, investors will get insights into the labor market with the June jobs report. Can't wait for that. Now, reports also coming in shows NVIDIA is set to be charged by the French antitrust regulator for allegedly anti-competitive practices. People with direct knowledge of this matter are, reporting it, saying that's the first enforcer to act against a computer chip maker. Now let's look to Asia now, see how they performed, how they closed trade. Mostly fell on Tuesday, breaking ranks with Wall Street as saw the Nasdaq Composite reaching a new record high on the back of tech stocks. We see the Nikkei in Japan, rising their surge to 40,000 level, up 1.12%, while the broad-based topics rose. The index rose 1.15% to hit a fresh 34-year high of 2,856 points. Now the Japanese yen weakened to as much as 161 against the dollar, staying at a 38-year low. The Bank of Japan is also likely to cut bond purchases by about $100 billion in the first year. Now let's look at South Korea's Kospi, how it ended down 0.84%, and the small cap Kosdaq also closed down 2.04%. Now let's look at the Hang Seng Index. Is back from the holiday now, but up 0.29% to close the final hour of trade. And mainland China's Shanghai Index, that rose 0.08%. With that, have that on the screen. And Australia's S&P ASX 200 fell. On the flip side, 0.42%. The Reserve Bank of Australia released the minutes from its June monetary policy meeting, and we saw members of the board discussing interest rates, but eventually decided to hold them steady at 4.35%. Members also said it was still possible to achieve the inflation target within a reasonable time frame without moving from full employment. A lot of inflation data coming in with the South Korea inflation data. Investors are looking to that, and that is influencing the decisions in that region.
Yeah, so, but the minutes from the U.S. today, I think, is going to be a major.
It is a major one, so we're just going to expect that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Will.